Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Steven.
And Kyle.
It's Monday, Hollow Cult. You know what that means. You chose us to hang out with you. And for that, we are forever grateful. So we're going to kickstart this work week off with, I'm going to peek at Kyle's info. Ooh.
Got a good one.
It's going to be, I'm not going to make that joke. It's, we're getting into some conspiratorial waters
I think
here.
I have an idea of where you were getting ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not going to make that joke. It's been a while, but okay. So, yeah, if you're new here, you're going to want to fast forward to about 5 or 6 minutes when we get into the actual crux of the show. Because me and Kyle like to chit-chat. Some people like that. Some people don't. We don't care if you like it or not. We're going to do it anyway.
Boom.
So, that being said, fast forward if you don't want to listen to it. Check us out on all our social medias. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Discord, Reddit. Come over, hang out, search up the Holosky Podcast. Join the cult. It's cool. It's fun. A lot of people do it. It's a pretty good time. We don't make you do anything weird. We could, but we don't. Also, just be part of the community. It's a good time. If you have a paranormal experience you'd like for us to feature on a future episode of our listener experience show, Kyle's got some deets for you.
I do. It's pretty simple. It's always in the show notes. holoskypodcast@gmail.com. You can write your stories out, shoot them off to the email. We'll get them, file them, get to them. Like I said in the last episode, we've been crazy busy. And we're a little slow at things. But we are going to start doing listener experience again. We're just getting there. So I apologize for that. Giving thanks segment, I'm going to shout out one of the Miss Ride and Dies for the show, JJ. If you need any type of spiritual cleansing, get a hold of JJ. Obviously, her prices are per case, so you'll have to talk to her about that. But that is another person who just puts on for the show constantly and us as human beings. So taking the time here to shout her out and maybe drum up some business for her and get her name out there a little bit more because she deserves it.
Yep. I think all her socials are JJRose777. Definitely check her out.
Yeah, it's worth it.
She's a real one.
Yeah.
She is a real one. If you guys would like to support the show, plenty of ways you can do it. Starting with the Patreon, $7 a month. You get over 50 extra episodes. You get these episodes dropped early, dropped ad-free, and nothing else about the episodes. So we also got Casket Breath Jams that drop over there. You get merch coupons whenever we drop them. You're the first ones to know about when new merch drops. All kinds of good stuff. Also, shout the show out word of mouth. Oh, no. Jump the shark there. holoskypodcast.com. You can go over to the store and check out what kind of merch we got over there. Shirts, hats, stickers, the whole nine. Shirts are on sale right now. Getting rid of backstock. Go check them before we get the 2025s going. So, yeah. Shout us out word of mouth. Always throw Holosky out there. Spray painted on bridges, side of buildings, on
Chemtrail it in the sky.
Chemtrail it in the sky. That's a good one.
Yeah. I just came up with that just now.
Yeah. If you got other paranormal podcasts you'd like for us to kind of collab with, talk about some weird stuff, throw our name out to them, tell them to holler at us, and we'll get with them. You know the deal. Also, go to wherever you listen to podcasts, your podcatcher, if you will, and leave us a nice 5-star rating and review. When I find it, I'll gladly shout you out. This week's 5-star rating and review comes from our friend, Joe Lubius.
Interesting name.
Yes, Joe Lubius says, great job, 5 stars. Gee whiz, I knew about these guys for a long time from hearing about them on the confessionals. Tinfoil hat, and finally now, the higher side chats. The THC episode really sucked me in, and they really do great No Frills podcast. They're amusing and informative, highly recommended. Well, Joe Lubius, we highly recommend you.
Thank you.
As being a cool listener. So thank you for taking the time to send us some good vibes.
I love the fact that you said gee whiz.
Yeah. That's a solid starter.
Well, and even more so the fact that you typed it out. That's even better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You want gee whiz. We're glad you're here.
I love it.
It's good.
I love it.
We streamlined that. 5 minutes and 25 seconds, everybody. 5:25.
That's got to be at least in the top 3.
We're getting more efficient. No, we're not.
We're not.
That is that. Kyle, let's get it. Let's talk about it.
This is a pretty wild story. Probably going to end up being a 2-parter. So I still got a lot of stuff I want to look into. But we're going to get into the Oklahoma City bombing. Big topic.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's a big topic. Obviously, crazy, unfortunate event. Tragic. Absolutely horrible. Never should have happened, but it did. And we're here. We're going to start poking holes in the story. We're going to go kind of official and then branch off into some oddities. So, April 19th, 1995, at approximately 9:02 a.m., a bomb was set off at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. It was the second anniversary of the end to the Waco siege. This took the lives of 168 people and injured 684. It destroyed more than a third of the building. It also damaged 324 other buildings and caused an estimated $652 million worth of damage.
That's insane amount of destruction.
It's crazy. I had no idea that it damaged so many buildings.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah. There were reports of people seeing the roofs blow off of nearby buildings. Like actually raise up.
I've seen pictures from the devastation that it caused at the actual Murrah Building.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even fathom the power of a blast that would A, do that to a building, but B, also like blow the roofs off of buildings far away.
Bro, I don't exactly remember the numbers right yet, and we will get to it later on, so if you hear me repeat it, I apologize. But I don't know the real numbers. I know I have them written down. Did you know that the fucking glass from other buildings caused like a percentage of the deaths?
Just
glass.
That's terrifying.
Yes. I read that statistic and I'm like, this is the craziest shit that I've read. That's so crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I mean, I know it's shrapnel,
broken
but
glass
still,
shrapnel.
Yeah, it's just one of them things you don't really think about, you know? But
that sucks.
In regards to the bombing, in less than 90 minutes, McVeigh was pulled over by Charlie Hanger, an Oklahoma highway patrolman. McVeigh was driving without a license plate and arrested for illegal weapons possession. At this point, I decided to look and see what kind of illegal weapons he had, because it specifically said weapons. I stumbled on an arrest page about how one man, it's kind of like a page of praise, so to speak, how one man pulling over somebody can kind of be a huge deal. But Charlie pulled over McVeigh. He said he had a weird feeling about this guy, even before anything takes place. So he pulls McVeigh's vehicle over and instantly has a weird feeling. And most times in like police stops, which we've all seen it, we've probably all been a part of it. Police officer pulls you over, he gets out of his vehicle, walks up to your vehicle, and continues on with your encounter. Instead of doing that, this cop orders McVeigh to get out of his car. McVeigh gets out. He's like, hey, where's your driver's license, so on and so forth. McVeigh goes to get his driver's license, and the cop notices a print of a firearm in his pants. So he's like, "Hey, you got a gun?" And McVeigh's like, "Yeah, I do." Ends up finding out it's a .45 caliber Glock loaded with black Talon rounds. Black Talon rounds, for those that don't know, are a brand of hollow point ammunition that was primarily intended for law enforcement and personal defense. I wanted to look into the rounds in particular because the article that I was reading, in my opinion, like oversold the lethality of them. Of course, they are lethal. They are hollow point rounds, but they made them sound like some military grade ammunition. It just really oversold it.
Yeah, it's weird that they even pointed it out.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Even in the world of like true crime, like when serial killers get pulled over or something, they don't necessarily make it a point to point out what ammunition they had in any kind of weapon they have on them.
Yeah, it's also strange to me that, and I get it, that because I think they also have the nickname of cop killer, but police officers also use these rounds as well. And it gave me the impression when I was reading this that these were some type of exclusive rounds for police. So that kind of threw up a red flag where I'm like, well, if that's the case, but I don't think that was the case. I think that they were just some aggressive hollow points is all it was. Another oddity was that when Charlie was transporting McVeigh to the station, which he now is being arrested for an illegal concealed carry charge, McVeigh was apparently shuffling around in the back of the squad car. So after Charlie takes him in to book him and whatnot, he went back to his car. So the cop goes back to his car, gives it a once over, and he finds a crumpled up business card for a military surplus store in the back seat. And on the back of the card, it said, "We'll need more TNT, $10 a stick."
In the back of the cop car?
In the back of the cop car.
Huh.
So essentially insinuating that this either fell out of McVeigh's clothing or McVeigh tried dumping it.
Which is weird.
It kind of feels intentional at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The whole thing just feels really bizarre to me.
You wouldn't think that if he was trying to get rid of some information, he would like just put it in the back seat of a cop car.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. And in most of the cases, or in most of the information that I read through, and of course it is the internet, so you can overlook things, I didn't read any reports of him using TNT. So the fact that he needed quote unquote more TNT is a rather strange statement to me.
Yeah, I always read that it was fertilizer and stuff.
Yeah, and there was some other stuff. I know they did get some, I think it was blasting caps and shit like that, because they did end up raiding like a quarry for supplies. But if you're raiding a quarry and getting dynamite and shit, you don't need to buy anymore. At least I wouldn't think so.
Oh, that's weird.
Anyways, Timothy McVeigh is obviously the big name in the bombing of Oklahoma City. However, McVeigh and Terry Nichols were kind of pinned for this whole thing. McVeigh and Nichols apparently met at Fort Benning during basic training. According to sources, McVeigh and Nichols were radicalized by white supremacists and anti-government propaganda. They were pretty upset how the government had handled the Waco siege and Ruby Ridge. McVeigh visited the Waco site during the standoff and after all of it was said and done. This, according to sources, was the beginning of the planning for the bombing. He decided a bomb at a federal building was the best answer for all of this.
That was always the scenario that I had heard. His motive, I heard, was as a response to the way things went down in Waco.
Yeah. And that may be a little bit further from the truth, as we'll later learn. But McVeigh even apparently thought of individual assassinations instead of a bombing. But then he decides, individual assassinations aren't really the best way to get my message out the door. So instead, I think I'm going to create a spectacle, if you will. Something with mass casualty and lots of coverage. Because, what he did was a huge deal. He had considered targets in Missouri, Arizona, Texas, and Arkansas. Oddly enough, he wanted to minimize civilian casualties. One of his picks was Simmons Tower, which was a 40-story building, but he ends up, and I want everybody to hear this and keep it in the back of their minds. He decided against Simmons Tower because it had a florist shop on the ground floor.
Oh, collateral damage, you say?
It's weird, right?
There, McVeigh. Did you scout out the building that you did decide to blow up? Because there's some more important things than flowers in that basement, bud.
Yeah. But for me, that statement is a red flag. So we'll put that there. This is when and this is also something I want to put a pin in. He scouted and decided on the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building as the primary target. It housed up to 14 different federal buildings, and he expected its glass front to shatter under the blast impact. It also had a large parking lot that would somehow, he thought, and I don't know how this plays out, so somebody smarter than me help me out. He was under the impression, and I don't think I believe this at all, that the large parking lot would absorb some of the blast and help keep people safe.
I've heard different stories from, I guess, essentially McVeigh, that he essentially wasn't in it for like human casualties, right? He was more trying to make a statement toward the government building, which you'd think he'd then do it on a holiday or some shit, right? I also heard he made a statement that if he knew that there was going to be that much of a child collateral damage, he would have chosen a different target.
Yeah.
Which is weird, and the whole floral thing that I never heard. Like, you're going to avoid that because essentially you think a flower shop, you probably got civilians coming in and out, right? That's probably a reason he marked that off the list.
Oh, of course.
But he didn't vet it enough to realize that there was a daycare in the bottom of the building. It's hard to tell, man.
Well, my thing is right here in this statement is how does a parking lot absorb a blast? It's flat ground.
Yeah.
Now, a parking garage, okay.
Unless, like, the fact that it was open, instead of, like, absorbing the blast, it would let the blast, like, dissipate.
Maybe.
The opposite direction.
Regardless, McVeigh liked the open space around the building because he supposedly said it would provide better photo opportunities. It's another weird way to go about things in the way you're planning. Anyways, the date of the bombing was planned down as well. It's weird because of how much it aligns with. It was apparently the anniversary of the Waco siege, as I've already mentioned, but also the 220th anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord during the American Revolution. There were also rumors that it was linked to the planned execution of Richard Snell, an Arkansas white supremacist who was a member of the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, CSA for short. Snell had apparently predicted that a bombing would take place on that day, and he wanted to blow up the Oklahoma City building as revenge for the IRS raiding his home. I also found out through an interview from a former CSA member who was apparently the second in command, said it was most likely the event that McVeigh spoke with Snell, who was sentenced to death for killing a police officer, claiming that McVeigh may have asked what Snell would have wanted before his death. Snell says, the bombing of this building would be a really good farewell present, because the CSA actually had plans to bomb that building in 1983.
That's weird.
It is weird. And it's said that before Snell was put to death, he was watching. Obviously, this is before he was in the room and what have you. But he apparently got to watch the coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing. And the entire time, he was kind of like smiling and chuckling to himself about the entire event. Apparently, it was the FBI that pushed the Waco connection. Because they were claiming that the Snell connection made far less sense than the Waco connection. In my opinion, it kind of seems irrelevant. Like which way it went.
It feels like, now this isn't my beliefs or in any way. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, right? Before anybody comes at me. If McVeigh was a patsy, right? Hypothetically speaking, it would be easier to pin it on the Waco siege, since he had already been at the Waco siege during it, visited afterwards. Like that, they're building a pretty good motive. He built a pretty good motive by himself for them to kind of create if they were going to, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point. It is a good point. I didn't think about that, about how he had obviously been spotted at the Waco siege. But according to official reports, McVeigh and Nichols stole or bought the materials in order to create the bomb they used. I read that there was a total weight of the explosive in the truck was about 4,800 pounds.
Whew.
It's a lot. Some people also said 7,000, but I think what actually happened was that they had 7,000 pounds of materials, but they only used 4,800 in the truck. On April 19th, 1995, McVeigh drives up to the building at 9 a.m. With him, he carries pages from the Turner Diaries in an envelope. Once again, a white supremacist fictional account where they create a revolution by blowing up an FBI headquarters at 9:15 using a truck bomb. I also try to dig around this narrative building with McVeigh, and because it's a simple question, but I was like, okay, well, how do you know he read the Turner Diaries? And apparently, when they arrested him, they found it in his car. Is what they said. Really, really bizarre to me.
Which is, it's weird, because if you wanted to push the like white supremacist angle, they could have definitely played it off with the CSA guy.
Yeah.
Instead of then also pushing the Waco narrative.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah, because they really do double down hard on the white supremacist narrative, which directly ties in with Snell. I've got more information later on that almost makes that the absolute case, but the FBI didn't want to push it.
It's weird.
Supposedly, McVeigh had a shirt on with Sic Semper Tyrannis, which means thus always to tyrants. And it said that Brutus said this as he assassinated Julius Caesar. It's also said to have been shouted by John Wilkes Booth right after he assassinated Abraham Lincoln. At 9:02, McVeigh set the bomb off in front of the north side of the building. 1/3 of the building was destroyed, which created a 30-foot wide and 8-foot deep crater on the street next to the building. 324 buildings were destroyed or damaged, and it shattered glass in 258 nearby buildings, which the broken glass alone accounted for 5% of the death total and 69% of the injuries.
That's insanity.
It's crazy.
But he did say he chose the big glass front of the building.
Yeah.
Which, imagine, okay, so they use 4,800 pounds, 4,900 pounds. Imagine the scope of the damage. If they would have had all 7,000, that building would have been leveled.
Yeah. Well, it gets a little more interesting.
It's crazy.
What's crazy is I write it later on in the episode, but I have it here too. When the bombing first took place, there was a call over the police radio, like APB, for Middle Eastern people who supposedly, right before the building exploded, they saw 2 Middle Eastern people running from the building in blue jogging suits. They then got into a brown pickup and drove off. That was who the police were looking for in the beginning. However, later on, it quickly went away, and they settled on McVeigh and Terry Nichols. They were both arrested. Terry Nichols actually ends up turning himself in because he finds that they are looking for him. McVeigh ends up with 11 counts of murder, conspiracy, and using a weapon of mass destruction. He would later be executed in 2001. Nichols caught a conspiracy charge and 8 counts of involuntary manslaughter. He ended up with life in prison. These two, as I said, met in the military. McVeigh served in the United States Army in 1988 to 1991. He enlisted as a combat engineer and was assigned to the 10th Mountain Division. During his service, McVeigh was involved in a number of tasks, including demolitions, landmine clearings, and construction of military fortifications. McVeigh was deployed in the Gulf War in 1991 and participated in Operation Desert Storm, serving as a combat support role, handling explosives and performing demolition work. He got several commendations, including the Bronze Star, for his service. And that's no joke. Nichols was a supply clerk in the military. He had nothing combat oriented, but he did serve as a big accomplice to McVeigh due to him helping hunt down all the materials and planning the situation. So from here, we're going to start venture off the beaten path. There were 20 to 24 people who saw 2 men in the truck that was used on that day. It was a Ryder rental truck, kind of like a U-Haul. Over 20 people saw 2 men in that truck.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
To get their stories wrong.
Yep. Each one of these witnesses described the second man as what seemed to be Middle Eastern. He had darker complexion, is what people were saying. I even saw footage from some of these people. They were like, he had a darker skin tone than what I did, and the dude was white as fucking chalk. So he's like, the dude was just darker than me. None of them specifically said Middle Eastern. They just said he had a darker complexion. I think it was dark hair, so on and so forth. But they in no way, shape, or form did they describe Terry Nichols at all. It wasn't even remotely close. Supposedly, all the CCTV footage at the blast site was seized and never released or classified. It's also strange how quickly and off-key the arrest was. What is weird about that arrest is it is extremely similar to how they end up grabbing Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald was walking down the street, and an officer said he was acting suspicious, which prompted the officer to approach him. And at that point, Lee takes off into the cinema and is quickly arrested. So once again, you have these accounts of where the perpetrator is nonchalantly going in life, and a cop just goes, "You know what? That guy looks weird. I'm gonna pull him over and talk to him." It's kind of weird. Feels like the same play out of the same playbook. That's my opinion, though.
It is weird.
So once again, we have a strange mishap with the news stations and their reporting. You have CBS, CNN, and NBC all report on 3 additional bombs inside the building. One of the bombs exploded, and the other 2 were apparently disarmed. An NBC affiliate, KFOR, reported on how the first bomb did all the damage, and the second had been disarmed, and the third was currently being disarmed, and the last 2 were supposedly bigger than the first 2, or the first one. They also commented on how crazy it was that so much explosives just got smuggled into a federal building. Like, well, this is weird.
How do they get the story so wrong?
I don't know.
Is my question.
And there was more than one news site.
It's one thing to...
Or news channel.
It's one thing to not know that it was a truck bomb and to assume that it was a bomb inside the building.
Yeah.
But you're giving specifics of not only multiple bombs in the building, but the bombs are being disarmed currently while you're giving the news.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting this information from? Assumedly, someone within the know, right?
Oh, you would think so.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, now it's, however many years later, and to the most of us, we know the truck bomb scenario. We don't know anything about these other bombs that were reported from inside the building.
It's just so weird.
We know the truck bomb story. That's all we know.
That it made it to the point to where it was talked about on multiple news avenues.
But what's crazy is that once McVeigh was arrested, the narrative of the 3 bombs disappears. And they all start telling the story that we know. Oddly enough, just like 9/11, hundreds of people were interviewed, and all of them said they heard more than one explosion. This was backed up by the U.S. Geological Survey. This is brilliant. People went to the U.S. Geological Survey and the University of Oklahoma. Both of them own their own seismograph, and both of them show multiple explosions at that time.
Weird.
Yeah, so more than one is rocking the ground around there. On top of that, the United States Air Force 1997 blast effects study of the OKC bombing verified the impossibility of it being the result of a single bomb. General Benton K. Parton said, and I quote, "It is impossible to describe the damage that occurred on April 19, 1995 to a single truck bomb containing 4,800 pounds. In fact, the maximum predicted damage of the floor panels of the Murrah Federal Building is equal to approximately 1% of the total floor area of the building. It must be concluded that the damage at the Murrah Federal Building is not the result of the truck bomb itself, but rather due to other factors such as locally placed charges within the building itself."
Weird.
Yeah. The general also speaks on how a single bomb out front cannot explain the failure of many columns in the back of the building as compared to the non-failure of columns in the front where the truck was parked. So that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
He basically seems to think that someone or some people placed demo charges inside the building.
Which, I mean, I guess there's room for error, room for failure. Why wouldn't they take the whole building down? Because essentially that's like, if you're putting demo charges inside the building, that's kind of what you're you know, it's what you're going for.
Well, it feels like a play out of 9/11 as well, because you heard the same fucking story, essentially.
It's the fact that so many like seismic like things picked up multiple explosions.
To me, that was a brilliant look.
To
go find that was genius.
I'm trying to think of scenario, like trying to play devil's advocate. I wonder if the initial explosion would have registered. Maybe the front of the building collapsing, would have registered?
I don't know. I wouldn't think so, unless it was really close to the seismograph. I don't know.
You would think that it would register differently because an explosion is instantaneous.
Yeah.
And granted, a building collapsing is fast, but it's not instantaneous. I don't know. That's weird that you got news outlets getting information from people talking about bombs being inside the building. And then you've also got multiple bombs. You've also got seismographic evidence of multiple explosions.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's crazy. And the plot continues to thicken. So you have Glenn and Kathy Wilburn. I'm just going to say this. I applaud you. You're fucking gangsters. But unfortunately, these two lost 2 children in the explosion.
That sucks.
Yeah. They worked constantly for years trying to figure out what actually happened that day. These two logged over 300 fucking hours of interviews. Even getting to people to talk who were just flat out scared, terrified of consequences, which is a bizarre statement. In a normal situation, people would just say, hey, this is what happened. However, for some weird fucking reason, these people are now afraid to speak on what they saw and went through.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is a federal building.
You're a victim. Like,
yeah.
Like anxiety and like post-traumatic stuff about it would make sense, but like fearing for your safety afterward. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know how I would react if I were a victim.
Bro, no, you can't even do that because there's no way, shape, or form you survive a bombing of your building and then get outside and the news anchor's like, Steve, what happened? And you're like, I'm scared that if I talk about it, I'm going to disappear.
Yeah,
Bye.
I guess the context of what you're scared of at that point really kind of sets in there.
Yeah. But these two end up concluding that on the day of the bomb, there was a heavily armed bomb squad in downtown Oklahoma near the Murrah Building. Some parents seen these people in their bomb squad uniforms as they dropped their children off at the daycare center at the Murrah Building, which means that even for the bomb squad, some of these guys end up losing their kids.
That's devastating.
Yeah. So that sucks. But there is an overarching narrative for that as well. According to the sheriff's department, which Kathy and Glenn actually got them to admit, not only was the bomb squad nearby that day, but the ATF was also, essentially the word used was hiding down the road. Like they were primed and ready for something. In another strange turn of events, it just so happens that Martin Keating, the brother of Oklahoma's governor, wrote a novel called The Final Jihad. In this book, a man named Tom McVeigh bombs an Oklahoma City federal building. I also found out that the government used the same company to haul away the debris of Oklahoma City as they did with 9/11.
Weird.
It's kind of weird.
On the other side of the country. Maybe not
Exactly.
weird if the government has a contract with them.
Yeah, there are definitely explanations to it.
It's mildly weird.
Yeah. There's also a link to a Patreon episode that we did with Terrence Yeeke. A quick overview of this. I'm not going to go in too crazy because it is on a Patreon episode. But a quick overview is that Terrence was a fantastic cop. He was a first responder that day, and he helped save quite a few people from the building. But Terrence began to speak out about the official investigation. Supposedly, and I was unable to track down, and I don't even think we got into it on the Patreon, about what evidence he actually had or seen. But apparently he found some evidence that was super disturbing surrounding the, I think it was the daycare, right, Steve? Because in the article,
Man, I can't remember.
I think it said Children's Hospital, but I think it's the daycare.
Yeah, I think it was a daycare.
And
let me double check.
And in conjunction with underground tunnels that connected the Murrah Building to a massive network of apparent underground tunnels underneath downtown Oklahoma City.
Yep. Maybe not. Yeah, hold on. Federal Employees Credit Union and America Kids Child Care Development Center. So I'm assuming like a daycare.
Yeah. Everybody else worded it as a daycare. But anyways, after this, he was paranoid, and there were reports that he was being followed and harassed. Later, his body was found with knife wounds on his arm, neck, and torso. Also, a gunshot wound to the head. His death was ruled a suicide.
Of course it was.
Right.
For anybody that wants to join the Patreon and check that episode out, I will pin it to the top of the Patreon for a few weeks.
Right on.
That way you guys can get in there and grab it. It's pretty interesting dig into that.
Yeah. I also saw as a side note that, oddly enough, on the day of the bombing, some people were sent messages about how they shouldn't show up for work that day, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
I found another pretty wild story. In the weeks preceding the bombing, Michael Loudenslager, I think that's how you say his name, he became aware of large amounts of ordnance and explosives being stored in this building. So he and an operator of the daycare center started to urge parents to pull their children out of the Murrah Building. People started to find out that the ATF and the DEA were bringing in ordnance. So they started to file a grievance. Like, hey, this probably isn't fucking smart. The man who filed it was the building security director. His wife actually ran the daycare center. Well, after he filed the grievance, he was fired. Then they did some remodeling to the daycare center. And after the remodeling was done, the dude's wife reported to the fire marshals of the work's completion, which by contract she was supposed to do. However, when the fire marshals got there to inspect the construction, they were denied access by federal agents. Said, no, you're not coming in the fucking building. As soon as this was over with, she got fired.
What?
Yeah. Then rumors started to circulate at the building about an impending bombing. Michael, with the daycare operator, began telling parents, like, hey, you should probably pull your children out of here. There's a lot of talk going around the office, and it's not good. Get your children out of here. And because of this, there were far fewer children in the building during the explosion.
Thank God, first off. But what the fuck?
Dude, it's crazy. During the explosion, that Loudenslager, he was in court. He leaves, goes down to start helping people at the site. There were a large number of people who saw him there, talked to him there, and people that he rescued. During this, during this time of him being there and helping people, people noticed him and someone else that they don't know. They were in the middle of an argument. To everyone's amazement, it was reported that Mike, his body had been found inside the Murrah Building the following Sunday at his desk on the first floor, supposedly a victim of the bombing.
Found. Okay.
And so right then and there,
Weird.
a lot of people automatically assumed he was murdered.
I can see why.
Yeah. Jack Culvert, Jackie Majors, and Buddy Youngblood all saw Mike alive and well after the bombing. All of them are dead.
Also weird.
Yeah. There was another story.
Is it sus? Sus deaths?
I believe so, yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence that all these people are like, no. I saw Mike. Mike was there. I seen him. And they go, no, you didn't, because he was dead on the first floor.
No. I saw him saving people.
Yeah, I actually saw Mike yelling and screaming at this dude.
No, you didn't. Let me remind you, that other guy that saw Mike saving people, nobody's going to save him.
Yeah.
Sus.
It sucks.
Very sus.
Wow. There was another story that I found that absolutely blew my mind because I've never, not that I've looked at, like, this is the first, like, real time I've really dug into the OKC bombing, but I've never heard this anywhere.
Outside of Terry Yuki, I didn't ever really look into.
Dude, there's some crazy ones. There's a woman who, before the bomb had gone off, she's driving down the road. She stopped at the intersection of 5th and Broadway. Off to her left, she sees a helicopter circling above the courthouse and the federal building, which is about a block and a half away. After turning onto 5th Street, she starts heading west, and she kind of keeps paying attention to the helicopter circling. At 9:02, she sees a bright, spherical-shaped light near the street in front of the federal building. It gave off a momentary electrical impulse. She describes it as like a humming or crackling sound. The light then seemed to explode, and she heard popping sounds and flashes of light coming from inside the building. She even noticed how the windows were popping out from some of the floors on the building. Then she saw a gigantic blue flash come out of the center of the building up into the sky. This was followed by a deafening explosion. What's crazy about this was that she claims to have seen a fucking missile shoot out of the building, and as she watched it, it went up into the air and then back down, hitting near the river from what she could tell. This is the only time I've read this, that somebody reports a damn missile shooting out of the building.
Did anyone go and retrieve the missile from the river?
I don't know. But it is reported when people were making references about hearing the ATF and them moving ordnance into the building. I didn't take it seriously at first because when I was reading it, it said ordnance.
They saw him moving a missile?
Well, it said ordnance, and then it said, in parentheses, missiles.
Get the fuck out of here.
I swear. I didn't take it seriously. I just thought maybe somebody confused something or whatever, and then I stumbled on this story, and I'm like, no way. No way did I just read what I read.
What? Bro, how did no... Okay. So they got missiles in the... How did nobody else see the missile launch?
I don't know, dude. Unless they kept it out of the news. I don't know.
That's so crazy.
I don't know.
That is so crazy.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard that before. But if they're legitimately moving missiles into the building, it's not out of the realm of possibility that she saw one go off.
That the building is a missile launcher.
apparently.
And why? Why would you need missiles in the federal building?
I don't know, man. I don't know. And to further the conspiracy, there was another woman who worked at the building. She noticed something strange as she started to watch the original television coverage of the situation. She noticed men who had been in the building the day before and again the morning of the bombing. These men were dressed in the building, or they were dressed in building maintenance workers' outfits. However, she had never seen them before. On the morning of the explosion, these men had been seen coming out of the stairwell on the first floor around 8 a.m. Both had blue pants and shirts like the normal maintenance workers. But she remembers thinking to herself that these people look so much different than the type of people they would normally hire. Now, go back to the beginning of the episode and remember what I told you was the first APB the cops put out. We're looking for 2 Middle Eastern dudes in blue jogging suits. And they left the building right before the explosions happened. And she's saying, I saw 2 dudes coming out of a stairwell around 8 a.m., which is an hour before the explosions. Both had blue pants and shirts on.
Weird.
Now, she doesn't say they're Middle Eastern. She just says they're much different than the type of people they would normally hire. And then on top of that, there was a woman who's seen 3 other men in the parking garage beneath the building. And she said that she would describe it as telephone wire and some block of solid putty colored substance. They also had plans of the building and were arguing over it. When they noticed her, they put everything in a bag and placed it behind the passenger seat in a faded green station wagon. Well, odds are the putty-colored substance is probably C4.
Probably not Play-Doh.
No. And I thought...
This is so crazy.
Dude, it gets even worse. And I thought maybe the faded green station wagon would come back up, but I never did find any other connections to it. Because it was very specific.
Okay. I'm big into the paranormal world, right? And the craziest paranormal shit. But I think why I'm more into that than the conspiracy world is because that shit feels way safer to me.
The paranormal?
Yes.
Oh yeah. People are nuts.
This sucks.
Dude, and it's real. I don't see how with all hundreds of these reports of people seeing different shit that normal people don't go, maybe we should just look into this a little bit.
It's crazy as hell to me that so many people are seeing so many different things.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's bigger than what even the conspiracies are. It's almost like the perception of reality was changed for different people witnessing the event.
Which arguably people would blame that on traumatic events because they've done it before.
But okay, I fully understand that. But there's a big difference from seeing 2 guys in a jogging suit run out of the building to see a goddamn missile flying out of the building.
Oh, I agree.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. But the arguably the missile is one off. I didn't find any other reports like that.
But the fact that it's tied into the information that they had missiles in the goddamn building.
Yeah. Which, still puts her claim on the map. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Dude, that's nuts. And then it makes you question, because really, if you have so many people that's seen so many different scenarios, what even is the reality we're perceiving? If everybody perceives stuff differently.
Well, and to be fair, I've got this next paragraph that almost could corroborate with the missile lady, Jane Graham had an office on the 7th floor. She had just gone up to the 9th floor when she says the first bomb explodes. It has a wave effect like an earthquake. Then the second bomb goes off, and the second one is way, way, way more powerful than the first. She describes it as it was like something was shot up through the center of the building, and it even blew the roof off.
It's weird.
Which could almost corroborate a damn missile.
Could.
I didn't think about it till just now.
Even missile thing aside, she said the first bomb was like deep, like an earthquake. That could have been something. That could have been charges weakening, weakening the
down the
structure
parking garage
of the
and
building.
stuff where those guys were saw.
And then essentially increasing the damage that the truck was going to do. It almost is like someone planned to take the entire building down.
Yes. And remember, in the general that came out and said that the truck bomb doesn't account for the pillars, the structural pillars that were damaged in the back of the building. So there you have the dudes in the basement with the plans of the building and the C4 charges.
And she felt like an earthquake, which you assume is underground, something shaking underground.
Right. Her testimony was actually given to the FBI. They didn't give a shit. All they did was say, hey, can you identify McVeigh or Nichols? Then, arguably one of the crazier encounters, a doctor on the scene that day, Don Chumley, he worked at the Broadway Medical Clinic about half a mile away from the Murrah Federal Building. He was one of the few people who, right after the explosion happens, he takes off into the building. He's like, I'm saving people. I don't give a fuck. So he goes and he starts helping people. During the events of the day, Chumley was asked to bandage 2 federal agents who had been trapped inside the building. However, the good doctor goes, no, you weren't. And they're like, yeah, dude, we need bandaged up. And he goes, you literally have no injuries at all. Go the fuck away. I don't have time to deal with this shit. He was mad about this. So these 2 men move on, find another doctor, and try getting that doctor to bandage them. Chumley sees this, goes up, and says, get the fuck out of here. I don't know what you're doing, and I'm not partaking in this. If you don't stop right now, I am going to report you. End of story. So these 2 dudes roll out. Like, all right, whatever. Chumley even works side by side with Officer Terry Yeeke.
Weird.
The rumors is that Chumley was also going to go public with some damning information.
He's not alive, is he?
Chumley was flying his plane 5 months later.
God damn it.
And mind you, he had over 600 hours of flying time. A Cessna 210 on its way from Amarillo, Texas to Guthrie. It was on its climb, had just taken off. It was at about 6,900 feet when all of a sudden the plane just nosedives into the ground. After the investigation, everything comes back clean. The plane essentially had nothing majorly wrong with it. Chumley was in great health. He had no ailments. The radar tech even says, yeah, I mean, he even was asking if he could proceed to 7,000 feet. The radar dude saw him on radar 1 second, and the very next second, it was gone. So like magic, there's another one biting the dust.
What the fuck?
And then you have the case of Kenneth Michael Trinidad. Kenneth, he had a bit of a rough life. He moved around eventually, finding himself in the military. Soon after, he developed an addiction to heroin. He ends up cleaning his life up, but before that, he was looking for a job. And he came across a vacancy in robbing banks. He was arrested, did 6 years, released on parole. Then he cleans his life up. On June 10th, 1995, 2 months after the OKC bombing, while crossing the border from Mexico into California, police end up picking him up and discover he's violating his parole because he leaves the country. So they arrest him, and apparently Kenneth was doing nothing more than visiting his wife's family in Mexico. And that was from an interview I saw involving Kenneth's brother. So he ends up getting picked up, and he gets transferred to the Department of Justice's Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma. From there, he calls his brother Jesse. And from what Jesse was saying, his brother was in a great mood. He was real chipper. He wasn't all that worried about it. And that took place on the 18th of August. At 2:38 a.m. on August 21st, a check on Kenneth's cell was taking place. The judge wrote, in this check, everything was normal. There was no sign of blood, no suicide attempt, nothing.
He's dead, isn't he?
At 3:02 a.m., and I don't know if this was when he was found or when the coroner pushed his death to, 3:02 a.m., he had passed away in that short amount of time. So from 2:38 to 3:02, something takes place, and Kenneth is found hanging from a noose of bed sheets. The weird part is that in this amount of time, the authorities said Kenneth tried to hang himself. He had fallen, bruised his head and his body. He also tried to slit his throat with a tube of toothpaste before finishing the job with his second attempt at hanging.
All within the 22 minutes, 24 minutes?
Yep. Makes sense, right? So when the family receives the body, his body is legitimately covered in wounds, cuts, and bruises.
What?
And I saw a picture of him. The dude looked like he had the shit kicked out of him. And per the coroner report, he suffered 3 extremely heavy blows to the head. His throat had been cut. Once again, the authorities say all of this is self-inflicted. The state medical examiner filed a complaint with the FBI claiming the irregularities in the investigation. The coroner, at first, was not even permitted to go into the cell. When he was, the cell had been completely cleaned by that afternoon. The coroner even filed it under murder because of how obvious it was the dude had been tortured. He said, no, impossible. This guy did this himself.
I was going to ask,
impossible.
Was it ruled a suicide?
No. That coroner ruled it as murder. But I think they ended up changing it,
of course,
on him. And furthermore, I didn't know this was a thing, but a board of inquiry was convened, and the attorney in charge was ordered to treat his findings as, quote unquote, attorney work product. This apparently is a legal distinction that would protect information uncovered from any potential lawsuit or Freedom of Information Act inquiries. So all they have to do is label something as attorney work product, whatever the fuck that means. And not only does it protect them from lawsuits, but even from FOIA requests.
That's so crazy.
That's insanity.
So
that
crazy.
They can do that.
So crazy.
So, with all that being said, Jesse's brother is like, all right, something is not adding up. So he starts digging around. He wants to know why his brother had been killed. During his investigation, he received an anonymous call that claimed Kenneth had been killed in a botched interrogation, which, side note, Why doesn't this happen anymore? Why don't people just get anonymous calls with pertinent information anymore? I want to live in that time.
We need that.
I 100% agree.
We have a holophone. Call us with anonymous information.
Please.
That'd be fucking sick.
It'd be awesome. But it was simply supposedly because Kenneth fit a profile due to his robbing of banks.
That's weird.
The caller was so vague that Jesse really didn't take it seriously. Until a reporter who was suspicious of the bombing and all of its information made a few links. The reporter's name was J.D. Cash. He thinks that Kenneth was mistaken for Richard Lee Guthrie, a member of the Aryan Republican Army. This group robbed over 20 banks across America in the 1990s. Members of the group were thought to have had connection with McVeigh. The two men, Kenneth and Richard, were strikingly similar in appearance. Same height, same weight, same build, both have dark hair, thick mustaches, and ironically enough, both men had fucking dragon tattoos on their left arm.
Oh, that is weird.
From there, Jesse ends up meeting David Paul Hammer, a convicted murderer. Hammer made friends with McVeigh and tells Jesse that when they talked, McVeigh told him of other conspirators in the Oklahoma City bombing, including Guthrie. They even showed McVeigh a picture of Kenneth, and McVeigh says, "Now I see why he was killed. They thought he was Guthrie."
God, you imagine being Kenneth?
Yeah.
In the cell, getting your ass beat, trying to get information out of you, and they just keep yelling at you like, "Tell us what you know, Guthrie. Tell us what you know."
Get this. Less than a year later,
Guthrie's dead.
Guthrie would also be found in his cell dead.
Weird.
A day before he was scheduled to give a television interview.
You don't say.
Suicide by hanging.
You don't say.
Then there was a man named Alden Gillis Baker. He was Kenneth's cellmate and said he would testify that he witnessed Kenneth's death.
Is he dead?
However, of course, it was ruled he was not a credible witness, and in December of 1999, Alden told his lawyer he feared for his life. In August of 2000, he was found dead in his cell, ruled a suicide by hanging.
Weird. I'm seeing the call me
a little bit of a pattern.
Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I'm seeing a little bit of a pattern here.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
That's crazy. That's not shocking.
No.
But it's crazy to me. What?
Isn't it? Like, dude, they didn't even care. They didn't care at all.
No.
They just started offing anybody. It was almost like their planning was so bad. And they just went to, all right, scorched earth.
Yeah. You can't talk if you're dead.
Everybody's got to be rolled up.
See ya.
And that's where I'm going to end it. We have a lot more to get into. And from what I have found, it only gets fucking weirder. Because I have found some weird shit. Steve, you sent me some weird shit that I'm excited to dig into. I mean, we're talking like the possibility of clones, mind control, all types of leads. We get a little bit more into oddities in the official narrative here. Also, some crazy connections to Germany, religious organizations, all types of stuff. Like this is so much wider than some racist asshole wanting to stick it to the government. This is insanity.
I knew when you said you were thinking about looking into it, I'm like, this is gonna be a rabbit hole. Check this out, everybody.
Yeah, that's quality.
Rode, shout out Rode. You make really good mixers. You make dog shit ass headphones, bud.
Yeah.
Not a sponsor. but
No.
still quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, part 1.
It's crazy how many people end up getting just jacked.
Yeah, and like you said, they don't even switch up their tactics. They're
No.
like, you know what? This is steady working. We're gonna keep going.
What blows my mind is that they didn't even fucking care. Like the one dude, Mike, that was seen by countless people.
They just set him at his desk.
They put him at his desk
week later.
and said he died
Sorry,
in the
bud.
explosion.
Sorry,
and
bud.
everybody is like, no, he didn't. And all the people that said no, he didn't, well, you're dead too.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take you.
They're like, are you sure he didn't die in the explosion, Steve? Well, you know what? But actually, maybe he probably did. You know,
That's what's crazy is that they just went full on scorched earth. They didn't care at all. At all. Anybody who claimed to have had any information, you were gone. You were off the playing board. Just done.
We should have known it was going to be like that after we dug into the Yiki case,
Yeah.
but I
didn't think it was. In no way would I have assumed so many people got clipped
these are just the ones
for
we
knowing
know
something.
about.
I know.
Think about all the ones that were like accidentally or, died of natural causes, died of a heart attack, died of cancer.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Dude, it's wild.
I'm
And I'm
excited.
excited. I got
said
a
that at the same
2 hour.
time.
Yeah, it was weird. I got a 2 hour documentary to go through. I've got a ton of more articles pulled up about mind control, fucking implants, cloning stuff,
yes.
all types of shit. So I'm hoping that the next episode just goes off the fucking rails. It just hard left.
We don't do very many conspiracy
No, we
episodes,
don't.
really. Let's see how this hits, folks.
I like it. I think it's crazy. It has a little bit of true crime in there, a lot of bit conspiracy, and it sounds like a lot of it was botched. You guys didn't do
Purposely.
Yeah, it was bad.
But yeah, dude, I'm just trying to process, like, outside looking the information in now, you're like, how can people not, like,
I
question
don't
this?
know,
But,
man. I don't know. Well, in the heat of the moment, though, there's so much going on, so much chaos,
Yeah, very understandable.
lots of emotions.
Saving lives and shit.
Well, even outside that, you expand back to people out of state. You just focus on the tragedy.
Yeah.
And once again, you're in a situation where the news, the government, authorities, those are all people you trust. You're supposed to trust.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? You never automatically assume, at least in most people's lives, you never automatically assume those people are telling you lies.
Yeah. It's something.
It's bizarre.
It's something. We're gonna have to kick in next week
Yeah.
to find out more. So, with that being said, thank you for hanging out with us, everybody. Hope your work week goes well. Check us out at all our social medias. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay weird. And in the words of Mr. Wendigo, remember, kids, if somebody tells you that the government wouldn't do that, yes, they would.